What's up, everybody? I'm doing good. I know we normally hit our captains first, but that's already been established, so we can kind of get right into get rocking. All week, I've been talking about a cool and huge opportunity for us. And good week of prep, excellent opponent, well coached, but going into a really cool environment. And if you love competing, this is your kind of game, man. So had a good week, like I said, with preparation, and now we get to take the show on the road.
We haven't asked you about it all week, I think probably because we just assumed he is going to play. But is there any level of concern with Bobby and his ankle?
No.
Okay.
Yep. So he did a good job on the rehab part of it, the things, but getting a chance to see him, yesterday some through the rehab and in today's practice, he looks strong.
And going back to these winning time moments that you guys have preached since day one, really,
yep.
How do you kind of integrate it throughout the week? Like, how many times do you have these mock games that you've talked about?
We do some Wednesday, so we do 4 a week that will integrate things. So some's part of a walkthrough on a Wednesday. Usually Thursday we do some type of 2-minute against one another. Like last week we did second possession of an overtime. And then Fridays are usually reserved for like last types of plays. 12 seconds, no timeouts. Joe may do a 4-minute. Cliff may do end of the game, and then tomorrow some special teams related ones that goes in. So Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and then Saturdays. It's a whole team, but more special teams, emphasis on that.
Have you ever had a season where it just shows up repeatedly in games like it has throughout the season?
Not in this fashion where, so much of, the last game to go. So to have the work put in allows that to take place. But it's a confident group, but they have had to go through the hard things together to gain that confidence. Like, I wish all resilience would, come when it was sunny and nice, but that's just not how shit goes down. Like, it comes in the hard moments and the hard losses and the lessons. And so we've heard us talk a lot on Tell the Truth Mondays. What's the lesson that we have to take and then apply it? And we have become stronger by having some of those hard lessons, Nikki. That's the honest truth to it. And so it gives us confidence knowing that we have been in the hard stuff. So it's like, okay, that we learned it's hard. It sucked, but this is how we got to improve.
What are the risks and the benefits of coming up with a more aggressive game plan against a really aggressive team like Detroit?
I would say the risks are doing things that you don't normally do on a consistent basis. So that would feel, what's the word? Like if you're trying things that you've never really done before, that would be a risk. Every game has, what do we have to do to win this game? And so not all of those are the same. So when you put all 3 of the units together and the coaches together, they also have a connection to say, this has to happen for us to play well. But we don't put one side, hey, you got to do this, and you're on your own. Like, it's always all connected.
And I guess, like, as a head coach, how do you come up with the ultimate plan where you guys want guys to land, like how aggressive we're going to be, whatever that is? How do you kind of get there and then communicate that?
With the staff, we start on Tuesdays, the first part of the plan, and then we meet each day as a group and the message that we want to have, the connection. So it goes from my spot to the coordinators, to the assistant coaches, and then once I start hearing it back from the players, then I know each level down of communication and it coming back up, that's when we really hit our marks. So if I say something in a staff meeting and I hear a player saying it back at practice, then I knew the communication hit all the levels.
Hey, good afternoon, Coach.
Good afternoon.
How much, if any, do you and Coach Witt take from your matchup against this Lions offense last year?
We definitely wanted to watch it, and so you can take some things about play calling, featuring players, but it is different, year to year. They've had a fantastic year. Just utilizing guys in different ways. The production, I think, is what just absolutely jumps out to you for different players. And so sometimes you may see one player just absolutely off the charts, but when it's spread, so much, that's a big difference. And that's what makes their offense, such a unique challenge.
And I know nobody wants to see the punters punting, but Tressway, Jack Fox, pretty good punters. How
Yes.
can they impact the flow of this game?
Well, I think the field position is the critical part of it, and how does that look as you're changing field position? Both these guys can really, hit the long ball to change field position or to drop one inside the 10-yard line. And so the field position to me is a big piece of this. So the average drive starts, and those two certainly are at the upper echelon of what they do. So like I said, maybe it's not the volume, but the success of the times that it's done, both sides.
Hey, Coach, so how do you keep the team kind of even keel going into the divisional round of the playoffs? Like, even for yourself, how does it just kind of stay business as usual?
Well, I think we probably acknowledge it first, Candy, at the start of the week to say, hey, this is, the whole week where it is. And sometimes I'll give you 30 seconds, a big picture, and then all there is just this Saturday. And this is how we'll go to get there. What is the Wednesday going to look like? The Thursday, the Friday. And said, I don't even really need you to think about the game yet. There's so many things for us to get right before we even get to there. And so just bringing us back to that day, to that practice, to that walkthrough, oftentimes I'll push really hard on the communication. And that was one of the topics I hit because we went not as fast on our first day, but I wanted to make sure the communication was loud and full speed. So we just try to say, what do we have to do to win this matchup, and be disciplined enough not to look ahead. And look ahead meaning even to Saturday when it's on a Tuesday. It's just, man, what do we got to do to nail the game? And I think if we do that and have enough discipline to do that together, that's a really good thing. And there's been a great leadership amongst the players that they're also able to share in that message where, the shift of leadership now is going to the players. And so what used to be a you is now becoming us. And so stay on this, quizzing each other, staying on the game plan. To me, that's, what the message has been. And that has been even 3 or 4 weeks ago when I talked about base camp. Like, you don't think about the summit. You just got to make it to the next stop. And then there, now that we can see the sight line, it's still far away. It's just this matchup against Detroit.
And as you say, things that don't come up on the stat sheet, what are some of the things you've seen from the Detroit Lions that may not come up on the stat sheet?
They got a lot of stats. That's a good one to ask. I would say the play style. That doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but you can see it and feel it in terms of the physicality that they play with, the aggressive nature that they play with, not just, a fourth down attempt, although they're, highest, but just challenging people. They play a lot of man-to-man. They're aggressive. So that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but you do see it when you watch them play. And we certainly have a lot of respect for that. All 3 phases, there's a real edge and a toughness about them. You're welcome.
Similar to Nikki's question about Bobby Wagner, any concern about Zane Gonzalez with the hip
Nope,
injury?
He's doing good.
Just how thankful are you to have had Zane come up with all the kickers you've gone through over the past 6 months? How thankful are you to have him here and be able to be as consistent as he's been? Yeah,
he's a real pro, and I was excited for he and for some of the other guys getting their first playoff experience. Okay, good. All right, still football. And so, like, for him and some of the other guys to go through that, that's a really big deal. I often look to Tress and Tyler. And, man, like you couldn't have had a better battery to work with than those two. They are absolutely, pros pro. And so that type of support, goes a long way, and it adds to your confidence. But, he's somebody that when you get your moments and you get a chance to deliver, that's a big deal.
Dan, taking you back a year ago, what do you remember most from the time you interviewed with Josh and Adam in person until you got the call that you were going to be the guy here?
What I remember most worry, I guess, like I really wanted the job. So I was like, shit, I hope they call, I had a sense in visiting with them. I came to Georgetown, and we had our interview there at a hotel there. And so leaving there, I just knew, like, these are the type of guys, that I want to work with. And over the last, 11 months, they've proven that and then some, to say that was my instincts at the time, to say this is the type of environment that I'd want to be a part of and the people, that I'd like to work with. And so that's, I'd say, the in-between time, yeah.
In the previous cycles, you had chances to interview for jobs. What was it about last year's offseason that made you really want to pursue another head coaching job?
Just the opportunity of the people. Like I said, I think maybe way back, hey man, I like doing hard shit with good people. And these guys have proven to be great people, and that's what you're looking for when you're absolutely putting your life's work together with some other people. Like, you want to make sure, like, this is how we want to do it and to do it together. And so I feel that kind of support from Adam every day. And, every time Josh and I are together, we feel that. And so that's a big deal.
I asked Cliff yesterday about the discipline it takes to keep running the ball even when it's not going, and he said, well, if I'm coaching under you, I have no choice, basically. What's your how does that, because obviously the traditional part maybe hasn't worked as well in the last few weeks, but you did stick with it. How, I guess, sort of get it, but why is it important for you for Cliff to keep doing that?
Well, I think it speaks to Cliff and Joe and Larry, whatever we have to do to win the game, and that's the thing, that's the most important part of it. And so the fact that Cliff's, been in this chair, like, he can recognize that. And so all of those guys knowing their part into it is the most important part, is winning. And if that means, using some time and clock on certain spaces, then we'll do that, even when it's hard. But, man, like, those three and the staff in general, like, they have brought a lot of insight and just the mindset to say, man, like, they're down for it, and whatever we have to do to win. That's a really cool feeling as a head coach, knowing, like, that there's not pushback or anybody, on their own agenda. It's just like, this is what we got to do to win.
And with Jeremy Chin, one of those guys you brought in, guy who's been around the league at least a little bit. How have you seen him develop, not just as like a player over the course of the year, but he seems like a more quieter guy, but being some type of leader for that secondary?
Yes. And you're exactly right, Ben. He has developed into that space. And seeing others here, I think Bobby has been a good, I'm not going to say influence, but a connector for him, and really high standards of what it can look like and how to do. And so I just spoke to him walking off the field. I said, man, your communication this week has been so on point. And there's a confidence that comes with that. And other people feel that if you're on the field and you give good and correct information to the guys around you, man, you want to talk about, like, lifting others up. Like, that's a really big deal. That's one of the best things you can do as a teammate. And so to see that type of communication where not only is he leading himself, but he's also giving the indicators and the things for others, that's when you can play really good defense.
Going back to Zane Gonzalez, a lot was made before the game-winning kick, fixing the hair and all that, and people knew, at least a lot of people knew, he had OCD. Did you know that?
Yes.
Do you talk to him about how to process that, or what's the?
Nope. I am super happy that he was able to discuss that, and if that is a chance for him to assist one other person, I think that takes just a lot of courage and a lot of tells you a lot about who he is, not just as a ball player, but as a man. And so moments like that, when you find out, like all these guys and coaches and everybody's dealt something coming up and through, and that's their story. But I'd much prefer them tell their story. And so I thought it was great that he was able to talk about that.
And then, have you had a team that it seems like this team embraces the moment pretty well? Is it fair to say that is this one of the more, I guess, teams you've had that does that the most? And if so, why do they do that, you think?
We do embrace it for sure. I think it's because of the volume of times we've been in it, John. I think that the experience into those spots, like I talked about earlier, the hard fights, doing it together, you do gain confidence from going through that. And they've been in a lot of close games, not just over the last month or so, but really the entire season with the exception of the first game. And you do grow together. And these guys have really bonded and connected, and they trust one another. And I think that's a big deal. If you have that kind of trust, John, then like the commitment grows and their connection grows. And so the trust of themselves, they trust one another. Like, that's a big deal. Not every team has that. All right, we'll see you on the road.